Welcome to 542 Main. I'm Harry Gross, and today it's my pleasure to be talking to Commissioner Julie Bujalski. Julie, how are you?
I'm good, Harry. How are you?
Good, good. Haven't seen you for a while.
I'm glad to see you back in the city again.
Thank you. I enjoy coming back, and especially enjoy coming back and talking to the commissioners. And
well, we enjoy having you, and I miss you.
Yeah. Well, why don't we catch up a little bit?
Sure.
You've been on the commission for a little while now, but prior to that, you've been a Dunedin resident for most of your life, should I say?
Most of my life. I moved here in, I think, 72, and then after high school, moved away, with school and everything. But I went to Dunedin Elementary, Dunedin Middle, Dunedin High School, St. Pete College, ITT Tech. So I moved away a little for a while, met my husband, and then moved back.
And came back,
had a baby and said, where do I want to raise my child?
Yeah.
I want to go home. I want to be in the city of Dunedin.
Yeah, good place to raise kids.
It's a great place to raise kids.
Definitely. So we have that in common. I was a resident for most of my life, and
you grew up in the city of Dunedin. Oh my God! I know you did.
I did. My father was actually born here.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was born.
I did not know that.
Over on Grant Street.
Oh my God!
Yeah. But you followed the path. You went to the schools here and everything, and you worked in the private sector around here. I know you didn't get right out of school and get on the city commission.
No. Actually, I worked for a company by the name of Patchington, a fashion merchandising women's clothing company, for 20 years. Moved my way up in the world and ended my career there, retired there as an economic forecaster, planner. I was also a fashion buyer, but a lot of what I did towards the end was sales analysis, budget analysis, how many jackets do we need to make this kind of money, just analyzing how to be an economically sound company. I loved my job there, but I had a good run. 20 years. I was traveling a lot, 14-hour days, and with a young child, it just wasn't fitting into my, mommy mode, if you would. And I needed something different.
I'm guessing the economic forecasting and budget end of it probably. You get to use that a lot more than the fashion buying and being a city commissioner.
Absolutely, quite a bit. People kind of call me that right brain, left brain person. I'm very analytical, but also creative. So it's a unique thing when they do personality testings and tell you they don't find too many people that do that, but I happen to be one of them. They tell me anyways. So yes, I can tend to be very analytical and understand how numbers make things work, but it's also important to understand the creative side of being a good leader too.
Great. I remember from my own career in Parks and Recreation that before you became a city commissioner, you were usually around doing volunteer work or one thing or another. You always seemed to have an interest in city government.
I did.
And I just wonder, was there a catalyst or a specific incident, project, or initiative or something that made you decide to actually run for city commission?
Well, I don't know that there was actually one thing. There were a few things, but interesting enough, and how I met you, which is why you hold such a special place in my heart, is that when I did move back, I wanted to really get immersed into the community. When I left Dunedin, I was 18, 17 years old, and I was now in my 30s and a very different person, and had a family, and I wanted to get involved, and so I started doing volunteer work. I actually even tried to look for a job with the city. I would hound you all the time because I wanted to be your special events coordinator. And so what I did was I just started coming to city commission meetings, and I thought, I can meet people there, I can see what they're talking about, I can understand what the needs of the community are, and something will come from that. And 5 years I did that. and enjoyed it. And matter of fact, would be, you know, kind of kicking myself if I missed one, because I really got to know what was going on in the community. I got to know a lot of people, and you know, I kind of started seeing that my generation wasn't represented in the manner that I thought they could be. You know, I don't want to condemn any past commissions or anything like that, but you know, I can think of a couple of things that just me as a 30-something and the people that I grew up with at Dunedin High School, I thought, gosh, you know, I just didn't feel like I was being represented. And, you know, sometimes you forget. When I've experienced the other side of that coin, that how many people you really do have to represent. I can remember one instance, and this certainly wasn't the thing that made me run. It was just a multitude of things, I think, but and you'll remember this, Harry, back when City Hall was temporarily over at the Hale Center.
Yes.
And the Dunedin Little League, and I think their name was slightly different at the time, their lights were going bad, and they were a danger, and they came to the commission and wanted the city's help in replacing the lights. And it was a big, hairy ordeal. And there was a lot of debate on the commission about whose responsibility it was to pay for it. But as a mother at the time, my child wasn't old enough to play baseball, but at the time I was thinking to myself, are we really going to ask, you know, these families and these kids to go out and panhandle in front of Publix and pay for lights that are on our property? I thought, that's just not representing my generation. We sorted all through that, but that was just one thing that just sort of got me going.
I do remember that.
Yes,
I
it was
remember
hairy.
we had to shut one field
hairy,
down.
Harry.
We had to shut one field down because one of the wooden cross arms broke off, and the lights just tumbled to the ground on that field.
Right.
So
but you know what? Since then, and rightfully so, I think we've come a long way since then. And those lights got taken care of, and just not too long ago, the Dunedin Junior Falcons program that you helped negotiate and create here at the to be over at the Dunedin High School, which was a great thing that you did. Their lights went out, and you know, we no one could pay for it, and we stepped in. And the best thing about that is that these kids have a place to go and hang out 5 nights a week. And if they're on that football field, they're not in the streets doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And those are the kinds of things that I feel support the families of Dunedin that I think are important.
Yeah, those are good programs. It's ironic when you do think about it, because I do remember you were interested in a job with the city doing special events, and at that time that position didn't get funded, and ironically you ended up on the city commission, which you might have never done had you. Exactly.
It wasn't something that I said. You don't wake up. You don't. Most people, I don't think, especially for hometown, their hometown communities, wake up and say, "I want to be a city commissioner when I grow up." I think it's just you love your community, you want to help people, you want to make your community better, and it's one of many, many ways to do that.
Yeah, and Dunedin's fortunate that there's an awful lot of people that volunteer to do everything from sitting on advisory committees to helping out with recreation programs to you name it. I mean, working with the sheriff's office, a lot of volunteers in Dunedin. That was good background items. As far as the job goes, and you've been on it for a little while now. I mean, you were, I remember when you first...
7 years,
7 years it has been, and that's, what is that, 2 terms maybe? They've
it
changed
was 3.
that recently,
It's 3
haven't they?
terms because I was filling in for someone's term when I got elected.
That's right. What have you liked best about being on the city commission?
Boy, I could talk a lot about that. You know, I think it's a kind of a double-edged sword, but I think when someone comes to you, and whether it's their garbage isn't getting picked up correctly, or unfortunately they have a sinkhole in their backyard that we just experienced, being there for that person, being able to walk them through how to fix the small problems, and being there to hold their hand while they're watching their home being torn down. That's what I love about my job. Just, being there for my neighbors. And I feel like we're such a small community that we all are neighbors. We may not know everybody by name, but boy, it's not easy to walk down the street and see somebody that you don't know. You pretty much recognize everybody from somewhere. And so I do feel that we all treat each other as neighbors, and so to be able to be there for them in whatever capacity that I can, that's my favorite thing.
And you may have heard this or not. I did hear ongoing news coverage of the sinkhole incident,
Yes.
and the one gentleman who is in the family that you saw mostly on television,
Mr. Dupree.
had some really nice things to say about the city and its response to their situation.
Yeah, and I just have to say too, probably a little bit off a script, but I have to really, really thank our city staff and but not just them and our firefighters and our sheriffs, but the outpouring in the community. I mean, I know people have been praying for these folks. I know that our high school band went over on Saturday and had a cookout for everybody on the street and played pipe music for them, just out of the goodness of their heart to try to lift their spirits. Just the simple things that people are doing really brings the community together, and it's not just the two families that lost their homes. There were the displaced people, and then there's the other folks that live at either end of the street or the streets around them that are going to be worried about their future property values. I mean, this is a big thing that's bringing a lot of stress on people, and people just, the compassion that's coming out for them is very heartwarming, and I encourage everyone to, it's not over. Keep supporting everyone in that entire neighborhood, because it's going to be a long road for everyone.
Even after working for the city for years, I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was just really impressed with the story about the firefighter going into the 56-foot deep sinkhole with the tether to get the family photographs and papers and things out.
Yeah, and then there was a ring.
Yeah.
I know one of our firefighters, Penny Eggers, went into the house and got the ring. The wedding ring of one of the families. It really is.
And that's pretty risky. I mean,
it is very risky, and we do have a local foundation that is accepting donations, and we'll be posting that on our website shortly as soon as we get all the details, sorted out. So.
On the other side of the coin, I know that being a city commissioner isn't all fun and shaking hands and kissing babies or whatever. Yeah. What has been the most difficult for you as a city commissioner?
Well, I'm going to go back to my original answer to what's the best thing. I think I kind of said it was a double-edged sword, because the most difficult thing is when a really big thing does happen, like the sinkhole. And there have been other issues that have happened. We lost one of our young people, Zach Shannon, in Afghanistan a couple of years back and last year. And when you see people in pain, it's difficult, because for me, I'm kind of a fixer person. That's part of my personality, and there's just some things you just can't fix.
Yeah.
And I think that's, for me personally, probably the most difficult thing, because I want to help everybody. Yeah. And some of these bigger issues, it really they do just need somebody to hold their hand, and so I think that's probably the hardest thing for me.
One of the things, one of the perspectives I had, because I worked for the city for a long time, was I saw a lot of commissioners come on and be elected. A lot of new commissioners came along, and I don't think people realized the huge learning curve that a new city commissioner has.
Yes.
And you had that learning curve, and in that you were no different than anybody else that came on. It's
Right.
when you come on and you're getting ready to attend your first commission meeting, and they give you a packet of information this thick, and maybe 4 days to
Right.
learn it and understand it, and then vote on it and make decisions
Right.
on Thursday night. Considering that learning curve and some of the types of issues that you need to just jump right into when you are elected, and you have that one nice meeting where they swear you in, and your family gets up and says
Yeah.
nice things, and then after that it's new business, and you have to jump into those things. What advice would you give someone thinking about a career as an elected public official?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is ask yourself why you want to do it. That's the first thing. If make sure your motivation is on track. If you've got, try not to run on a single issue. It's good to be passionate, but a community is much more complex than one thing, and so it's important that you're able to kind of bring yourself above the trees, if you will, and try to look at what's best for everyone versus one side or the other. So try to ask yourself, I would say, what's your motivation? And then I would say, if you've got yourself in check on that, I mean, what I did was a little extreme, but I kind of started a trend. I attended commission meetings, and and yeah, you can watch them on TV. It's just not the same, because you get to meet people and talk to people when you're at commission meetings. And I did it for a very, very long time. And I read the staffing, and I asked questions of the staff, and I met with staff. And so I tried to educate myself as much as possible. And then I walked door to door and asked people what they thought about things. Those are the things that I did to try to educate the best I could into where I thought I had a well-rounded viewpoint. I had what staff thought, and I had what the residents felt. I had maybe what some other groups felt. So just education. And finally, I think I would say to recognize that, and it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, we all go through it. Every elected official goes through it. You do represent 30-some thousand people. You don't represent just one faction or another. And everybody deserves a voice, and everybody deserves something. And it's important to make sure that in your decision making that occurs, and that you're not taking it out on one group or taking it away from another.
Yeah. And I guess when you cast that vote, you have to just accept the fact that some people aren't going to be happy with it, and
yes,
some are,
and you have to be confident enough in yourself. I always say to myself, if I can support something if I can explain it to my neighbor. I don't mean a particular neighbor, but if I can look my neighbor in the eye and say, this is why I did it, and it makes sense, even if he doesn't agree with me, then I can vote for it.
Yeah.
That's the way I try to approach it.
We'll be back in just a moment with more 542 Main.
If a citywide emergency were to happen, how would you find out about proper procedures during a critical event? The City of Dunedin, which is dedicated to quality service, has contracted with Code Red to better inform our citizens in the event of an emergency. Code Red is an invaluable service that delivers a pre-recorded phone message from your city's Emergency Operations Center describing the situation to residents and businesses directly, or by leaving a message on an answering machine in the affected area. If you reside or own property within the incorporated limits of the City of Dunedin and would like to receive Code Red emergency messages, visit the city's website at dunedingov.com and click on the Emergency Services link on the left side of the home page. To stay informed in the event of a citywide emergency, sign up for the new Code Red notification system through the city's website, dunedingov.com. Get inside the fitness rooms at the Dunedin Community Center. You'll find a fully equipped workout area with Nautilus machines, cardio equipment, and free weights. There's also an exercise studio with a spring floor for jazzercise, dance, and martial arts classes. Come in and ask about a program designed for your fitness needs. Get inside the Dunedin Community Center.
As far as the current issues go, and the one thing that was always kind of amazing to me, but I guess I got used to it. When you think of Dunedin, it's a quaint little town. You know, the tourists love it. They, you know, you see the people on Main Street and just having a good time. There's always a lot of issues. I mean, that if you work for the city, if you're an elected official, you know about. What would you say are the most important issues on the City Commission's plate today?
Oh boy. Well, I think a big thing right now is the Blue Jays. I think a lot of people are thinking about the Blue Jays and what we're doing with that. That fits into a bigger picture of economic development, in which I think is probably one of the biggest group of things that's on our plate. We've got a number of empty properties in the city that need to get developed, and because of the economy, things just haven't progressed. We've got the Nielsen property. We've got the Fenway that we're going to be talking about here shortly. We've got Station Square just in downtown, and just a number of other smaller, the Keller property, and we've got to get that going. And how do we jumpstart that? How do we get that going? The Blue Jays, what do we do to keep them? And if God forbid they choose to leave, how do we get another team here? And then I would say the other thing is the city has an enormous amount of capital projects that have just sort of been in limbo because of our budget constraints. One of which is our pool. Our pool has been in need of replacement for a long time. You know that.
Yes.
It was first built when I think I was in middle school.
Probably, yeah.
So I'm dating myself there. So it needs to be replaced, but it's probably upwards of a $6 million project. And with dealing with the Blue Jays thing, if we have to replace a stadium, that's a lot of money.
Yes.
So I would say that making a strategic plan of how to get these capital projects in the city done, and focusing on economic development, these development properties, our tourism, our branding, getting people into the community. And I think that kind of encompasses a ton of things.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
So much of the issues in the past, it seems like it's been going on forever at this point, but I guess it hasn't been, has to do with the economy. And I know the city has experienced several years of very tight budgets. I mean, you've had to take unprecedented measures to just balance the budget and still provide services. And everybody says the economy's turning around, everybody says it's on the upswing, but it doesn't seem like anybody's tapped local government on the shoulder yet and told them, you guys are okay now. I mean, it seems like local government seems to be taking longer to recover. And I know that's for a variety of reasons, but do you anticipate that the city's budget challenges will continue for a while, or do you see light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I see both. I think I'm proud, actually, of the job that we did when the economy really hit rock bottom. We had to make some painful decisions. Some really wonderful people lost their jobs, and so I'm not saying that I'm proud of that, but it had to be done. But in the process, we did a lot of reorganizing, and we became very, very efficient, which, if you remember, back when all of the property values were skyrocketing up and cities were still raising their millage rate, and there was a big argument all over Florida, these governments just keep taking. We actually, there was a moment that we did that prior to me, and we got a new commission and we stopped doing that, and we made ourselves very efficient, and during this economic downturn we actually reduced our millage rate just slightly. Some people thought we were crazy, but if you've got a little extra money that doesn't belong to me or you or anybody else here in the city, belongs to the people at home, and they're really hurting, maybe it's just a token, but we gave it back to them. Now, going forward, we have to keep up that efficiency, but what we're doing now is looking at, now that we sort of cleaned up, if you will, the way we operate, now it's time to look at what's the smart way to grow. What do we want to grow? What are our needs? We know that, for instance, I'm in this studio, we know that communications is a really important thing. And I know we've said a number of times that we want to expand our communications and our programming and get us up to date in technology. Those things cost a lot of money to do. We want to do other things like, employees for the last several years have not had the opportunity to go out and get educated. Well, guess what? They need to be up to date in their education. We want to have young, smart people want to come work here. They're not going to want to come work here if they don't have education opportunities. So those are just two very small things that we've been looking at. But we're looking at the smart way to grow. And as money increases or as revenues increase for us, then we're going to look at the smart ways to spend them.
Yeah, and that was actually going to be my next line of discussion, as you, obviously, the commission as a whole took some valuable lessons out of the economic downturn and issues that you've had to deal with, and it was going to be how will those experiences play a role in what you do moving forward, as you said, even when the funds do start to come again, when the
and I think I just
increased.
really just reiterating, not for me personally, and I think all the commission feels basically the same, but for me personally, I'm not going to want us to change our efficiency measures that we've taken. I want us to be very strategic in adding money and putting it where it's really needed and best used. I can tell you, and you'll giggle at this one, one of the things I've been talking about for a couple of years is that, we've added acres and acres to our parks in the city of Dunedin, and we all love that, and we're happy about that. But yet we haven't added any staff to take care of them. That's an investment that benefits everyone, and those are the kinds of things that we have to target and look at, and those are the kinds of things that I think I've learned, is strategically spending our money. And public-private partnerships. It's a big buzzword right now everywhere, and I think we have to look forward into that much, much more. Yeah,
that's a lot of things on the horizon that just always seems to be some and some of the challenges kind of keep coming back year after year, or they go away for a while and come back. But then I was listening to some of the things earlier about issues, and I remember having a discussion about the Blue Jays back at the end of the 90s,
yeah,
you know.
in the early 2000s, and I
Yeah,
remember that.
yeah.
I remember that. It was a crazy time, and you know, just since you mentioned the Blue Jays, they, you know, the city right now is in the process of forming a stakeholder group, just in case people are interested in knowing, of key people across the county and the state. Because a lot of people have interest in keeping baseball in this area. It's not just about Dunedin, because it does make an economic impact across the county and the region. And we've got some really good people that are going to come together in this group. Folks from the Florida Sports Commission, folks from the legislature, folks from the city of Clearwater. And so we're going to get the best minds in a room. Obviously, our staff has been to Toronto. Our mayor's been to Toronto, has presented some options to the Blue Jays, and so we're just in a discussion phase. You know,
As long as you're still discussing,
we're
that's a
still
good sign.
discussing. It's not over, and
Yeah.
we want the Blue Jays to stay here. We do. It's important to our economy. They're part of. They're one of our neighbors. They're part of who Dunedin is, and we want them to stay here.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to think about Dunedin without them.
I can't
it's-
imagine Dunedin without the Blue Jays.
That would be a sad day. Thinking about the future a little bit, when you think about your future on the City Commission, is there a particular project or initiative, or maybe more than one, that you'd like to see brought to completion, or at least significantly move forward while you're on the commission? Any?
Let me just pull out my long list. Sorry. Well, a little off the city of Dunedin. You know, we're each one of the commissioners represents the commission and the citizens of Dunedin to various other agencies. The two liaison positions that I currently hold are to the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority, PSTA, which is the bus and transportation system, as well as the Pinellas County School Board and our local schools. And so one of the things that I've been working on that I would like to see come into fruition with PSTA is Greenlight Pinellas. And that is a Pinellas County-wide improved transportation plan. And it has numerous benefits for the entire county. Brings us into a 21st century, if you will, with transportation. But there's a number of benefits for the city of Dunedin, one of which, you know, we added the trolley a few years back, and it has been enormously successful. But right now it only runs Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It will, with this plan, it's going to referendum in November of 2014. If it passes, we will have the trolley 7 days a week, which will help bring people into our community. Additionally, we will have a seasonal trolley service out to Honeymoon Island, the #1 park in the state, which has no public transportation. We will have a bus rapid transit line down US 19 and a 10-minute bus service that will come off of US 19 right here into downtown Dunedin. You will be able to get out on any corner and get on a bus, and it will have late night hours anywhere from 10 to 12 o'clock at night and all weekend long. You will have express service all the way to the airport. And those are things that can't happen because of the financial cost of them. So that's a big issue, not just for Dunedin, but for the county, that I really would like to see come into fruition. Another thing that, again, a little bit out of the city, but going on to the school side of things, I'd like people to know that, you know, Dunedin Elementary is really struggling right now. We had a volunteer meeting just a couple of days ago. We did a call of action out to our boards and committees and volunteers, as you were speaking of earlier. because of the changes in the FCAT testing, they are rated now an F-rated school.
Oh.
And, Dunedin Elementary, again, it's a part of the fabric of our city. And while the city of Dunedin doesn't oversee the operations of that school, those are our children. And yes, there are some Clearwater students go there as well, but those are our children and our families. And we had a call to action, ask people to come out and just volunteer their time to be teachers' aides, to free the teachers up to focus on teaching. So a big thing I'd like to see is for that to really, really get improved with them. And then when you come back, back to the city of Dunedin, I really want to see something happen with the Fenway.
Yeah.
It's been sitting there for a very long time, as well as Nielsen. Those two pieces of property, especially Nielsen, has been sitting there just for so long. And I think we're on the right road for both projects, but I'd like to see them come into fruition, and then finally probably our water quality issues and stormwater issues. Lots of debates, we're getting handed down certain problems from the feds and environmental protection that need to be fixed, and I'd like to see those things done, including Cedar Creek and Curlew Creek.
Yeah. A lot of issues. A lot of people wouldn't
and varied issues.
Any ideas,
very
but
varied
they're
issues.
all over the map.
Yep.
For a small city, there's a lot to be contended with.
Very much so.
We have one feature on this program that you're familiar with, that the residents of Dunedin, through I believe it's the city's Facebook page, can put in questions that they would like to see commissioners asked on this program. And I have two questions today. One is Bill LeCaire, I believe that's how you pronounce it. I apologize if it's not. And he said that streets that need speed bumps are rejected because of emergencies vehicles need to transit. Basically, it's hard for a fire truck to get to an emergency quickly if they have to go over speed bumps. Has the Public Works Department looked into the city of St. Louis's multi-split low speed bumps?
To my knowledge, they haven't, but I can't say for sure. But what we are doing, speed humps has been a really emotional issue and has split neighborhoods, which is part of the reason why we have said that it is a last resort, if you will. Because the city of Dunedin is all about being neighbors and being a neighborhood, and we certainly don't want to cause rifts even within their own families. So what we're doing instead of speed humps, and one of the things that has been really effective, is using those speed feedback signs. And it looks just like a speed sign that you would see anywhere, except it's measuring the speed that you're going down a road, and it's flashing at you and telling you when you're speeding. And it has been very, very effective, and it is certainly less obtrusive to a neighborhood with that. And so that's the alternative that we've really been focusing on, in addition to, obviously, police monitoring and, all of those other normal things. But, when that's not working, these speed feedback signs have really, and I'll give you an example, and I'm sure a lot of people are watching have seen it recently, the speed feedback sign that is on County Road 1, just south of 580, where the school is. When you go over State Road 580, your natural inclination is to speed up, and you can hit 45 miles an hour before you get to that sign, and that sign's really close, and it's constantly going off, and you're constantly seeing people hit their brakes. So they do work. And they're also not as expensive as one might think. So rather than focusing on speed humps, we're focusing in a different direction, and I think equally as effective.
Does the sheriff's office still have that task force where they would focus on specific neighborhoods
Yes.
that there was a lot of speeding complaints?
Yes, we are still paying for extra traffic service in our, especially because we're not focusing on speed humps.
Yeah.
We want to be able to respond very quickly, and so yes, we still have the task force. I live off of County Road 1, and I see them out there all the time, all the time.
Yeah. I lived off of County Road 1 for a lot of my years, and
You do
they
not want to
were-
speed
no,
on
you
County Road
don't,
1.
and don't always think they're going to be in a car that you recognize as a
Exactly.
police car. I saw pickup trucks with flashing lights.
Yes,
and
that's
you
a
name
new
it.
one.
Yeah. So it's you have to be on your toes, or better yet, just don't speed.
There you go.
So, our second question is from Bill Newton, and his question, which is timely, is: do you think that we have sinkholes in Dunedin because we pump our own water out of the ground?
Well, that's a good question, because obviously it's the situation we just had. Over the weekend, when I was out at the site, myself and the mayor and Chief Parks and our engineer Tom Burke and a number of others, one of the neighbors had said, we have shallow wells in the area. Or, are we causing our own demise, if you will? And from what was explained to me, and I am not an engineer expert, but from what was explained to me, is that, lime rock, which is common in the state of Florida, and not as common as you go north, is a porous material, and it breaks down. And it breaks down, it's a layer over the aquifer, and as the aquifer rises and falls, you tend to get small holes in the limestone, kind of like Swiss cheese. Not normally a problem. It's natural. What happens is when there is a more of a dramatic incident with the aquifer. So if you have a number of months of a really excessive rainy season where it is, making the aquifer rise to unprecedented levels, the limestone's going to break down more. If you have if you were over pumping in your water, yes, that, and drawing it down too far, it could be a problem. But we have like 27 wells across the city, something to that effect. And so we have enough to where we're not drawing down in dramatic ways to affect that
In any
larger,
particular area.
right, in that Swiss cheese lime rock. And interesting to note, the closest well to the Robmar area is on County Road 1 in Michigan. So it's far enough away that what we're doing certainly didn't cause that, but isn't, likely to be causing sinkholes. And certainly Dunedin isn't the only one with them.
Right.
It's just, it's Mother Nature.
And Dunedin, for quite a few years, I don't believe you've been allowed to put in a deep well. You can only have shallow wells.
Exactly.
And their use is pretty limited too.
For those reasons, and I'm hoping that there's something that we can learn about, this issue. I'd like to ask our legislators to say, hey, when a sinkhole is discovered, there has to be a time limit to get it fixed. To urge the insurance companies to make sure that they're fixed in a timely manner, because, and I'm not saying that they weren't in this situation. I'm just saying that you learn from when incidences happen, and I'm hoping that they'll talk about this issue.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important.
Well, it certainly has brought national, if not international, attention to
It
the city of
has.
Dunedin.
It has. It has. But boy, hasn't it? It's really shown what a great community we have, the way they've
Everybody
come
rallied.
out. They did. They rallied, and they're still rallying. They're still rallying.
That's amazing. Julie, it's been a real pleasure talking with you
thank
today.
you, Harry.
Always,
I appreciate it.
always enjoy it.
I'm so happy to see you.
Same here. We've been talking with Commissioner Julie Bujalski, and I hope that you have learned as much from today's session as I have. They're always very informative, and we hope that you'll join us again. For 542 Main, I'm Harry Gross.